Hey, I want to take some time today to answer a viewer question. Now, this question is about dry firing, but I'm going to get to it in kind of a roundabout way here. First, I want to talk about the first rule of firearm safety, and that is always treat every gun like it's loaded. And I want to talk about how that's really not the rule. That is the rule if you're someone who just goes to a range and that's your only experience with handguns. At the range, you treat every gun like it's loaded. But if you get more involved in guns or you start to own guns, especially revolvers or any type of gun that you're going to use for self-defense, you're going to have to sometimes know that that gun is unloaded and you're going to have to treat it like it's unloaded. So the rule is actually treat every gun like it's loaded until you have personally verified that it isn't while it's in your actual possession. Meaning as long as it's in your hand, every now and then you're going to have to check, go, yep, that's unloaded, close it up. And now this is an unloaded gun and you can treat it as an unloaded gun. Now, if you ever set it down, turn your back, whatever, every time it comes back into your hand, repeat the process, only takes a second. But while it's in your hand, you can treat it like it's unloaded. And there's a reason you need to be able to do that. There's actually several reasons. One of the main reasons is, how do you clean a gun properly if you're treating it like it's loaded? You can't really do that. You have to know it's unloaded if you're going to clean it, swab the barrel, etc. So you have to treat it like it's unloaded to do that. Also, another thing, if you're going to count on a gun to save your life, you're going to have to do maintenance on that gun. Part of maintenance on a gun is checking the bore. You're going to have to be able to take a light and actually look down the barrel of the gun, looking through and making sure you can see the firing pin. Nothing looks like it's out of place. There's nothing fouling the rifling. There's not a bullet stuck in there like a squib or anything. You have to be able to inspect the bore. Now, on semi-autos, you can take the barrel out and do it if you want to, but how do you disassemble a gun if you treat it like it's loaded? But on a revolver, you're definitely going to have to do it from barrel in because you can't see from down on this side. And it's totally safe to do this. This is part of regular maintenance of your gun. So sometimes you have to know it's unloaded to clean it, inspect it, make sure it's safe and functional. But another reason you have to know your gun is unloaded sometimes is because you have to practice with it. Dry fire. Dry firing is a big part of practicing. And that leads me to the question the viewer had about dry firing. They asked me, are there any tips that I would give them when it comes to dry firing? Well, yeah, the tip I will give you is do it and do it often. Because dry firing is one of the most important aspects of training with your firearm. It gets you used to that trigger. It lets you know what it feels like. You get used to the weight of the gun in your hand. You know how to hold it. You know how to move that gun around. And you get used to that hammer falling or that striker going forward without the gun firing, and therefore you're not anticipating the recoil. That's one of the most important things about dry firing, is that you learn to not react preemptively to the gun going off because you're used to pulling the trigger without having to deal with a combustion or an explosion. So you learn not to anticipate the recoil, and that's one of the most important things about handgun accuracy. Another thing is just to get a smooth trigger pull. You really get to see how much your gun is moving while you're pulling that trigger. Especially if you have like a laser bullet or one of those barrel inserts that has a laser on it, watch that dot jump around when you're pulling the trigger. Now, if you don't have one of those, if you have one, you can just try to do it without the dot jumping around. Just practice firing until that dot doesn't move as much. But if you don't have one, another thing you can do is just take a bullet. Take a bullet like this, sit it on your barrel. And then with that on your barrel, practice dry firing. If you pull your trigger smoothly and efficiently and hold the gun steady, that bullet will stay on the barrel. Now, it will move some just from the impulse of the hammer falling, but it won't fall off right away. You should be able to get off several shots before it falls off. That will actually help you have a really steady trigger finger. If you do that, if you practice frequently, you practice as much as you possibly can, actually, and you do little things like maybe get a laser bullet or get one of those laser sights, or just stick a bullet on top of it and actually practice having a smooth trigger pull. If you do those things, you will know how to use that gun. You'll know how not to anticipate the recoil, and you'll have one of the smoothest trigger fingers in the business.